Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
By now, I'm sure most of y'all have seen that clip already. It's gone viral. It was intended to go viral. It was intended to be sensational. But for me, that's not even close to the most interesting thing that Bannon said during this interview with The Economist.
I don't agree with a lot of what you've said, but I have a much better understanding of what it is you're trying to do.
I'm with Zanny here. Of course, I do not agree with anything that Bannon said, but I do have a much better understanding of it. Although nothing that he said was new or surprising, it's the same kind of talking points that Bannon has been spouting for years.
We're at political war. Do you think if we calm things down, they're going to stop? What planet are you living on? This is my problem with this whole concept of liberal debate. And we have to seize the institutions, seize them, and then purge them. The strength of the populist nationalist MAGA movement in this country is we're anti-fragile. If that takes hot rhetoric, you ain't seen nothing yet. Trump is a vehicle. He's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will.
Once I got past the insane number of shirts that Bannon was wearing, I counted at least 6 or 7, and the comical number of pens attached to those shirts. Seriously, who needs to write that much? Nobody. I was able to focus on the substance of what Bannon was saying, and what he did in this interview was lay out very plainly the MAGA playbook. And it is a playbook that the opposition, the Democrats, the anti-fascists, pro-common sense, pro-democracy crowd can easily mobilize against and strategize against if they get their shit together. You ready to get into it? Let's go on this journey together.
I mean, you are now partway through the MAGA revolution. Let's assume that you're successful. Just paint a picture for me of what America looks like when you're successful.
Right off the bat, the crazy just started pouring out of Bannon's mouth.
In America, where the little guy, the person that the system is based upon, the working class and middle class in our country, sharing the prosperity, we actually have returned to capitalism, because we don't have capitalism today, as much as you guys hawk it. This is corporatism. So we have to break that. We have to give the little guy an opportunity to thrive, since the whole system rests upon him.
Come on, Steve. Name one policy that Trump has advocated for that is designed to help the working class. You can't. And Bannon's insistence that the U.S. economy is not based on capitalism, but rather on corporatism is a puzzling distinction. And I'm sorry, y'all, but Steve is being super disingenuous here. And to fully understand why, we have to go back to class.
This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, responding to another Ask Prof. Wolff question from our Patreon community.
Not off to a great start. I, too, got hung up with how this guy pronounced Patreon as Patreon, but I promise, stick with him. We're going to learn a little something.
Has the United States become corporatist instead of capitalist? My answer is yes and no. Where do corporations come from? Well, in almost every case, they come from a situation where there were competitive capitalists. Once, when the American automobile industry began, there were 50 car companies, and there ended up being Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, 3 of them. There were once many makers of computers. There are now relatively few. And the competition among them weeded many of them out, leaving a few huge corporations at the end.
We did it. We sat through a little class. Are you still awake? So when Steve tries to make a distinction between capitalism and corporatism, he's being quite intellectually dishonest, because corporatism is a form of capitalism. It's actually what happens in the absence of government regulation. Capitalism becomes corporatism. He's trying to convince us that there is a world that exists where pure capitalism benefits the working class and lifts them up. But for that to be beneficial in any capacity, it has to be paired with a heavy dose of government regulation. But Bannon and MAGA actively work against government regulation. But this tension between government regulation and capitalism is something we are really familiar with in the United States. Take a look at income concentration over the last 100 years. It tells quite a story. The United States was super corporatist in the 1920s. Income inequality was running rampant. But by the 1970s, that income inequality plummeted. How did we get there? We got there through government regulation, strong social safety nets, taxing the rich, promoting unions. But in the absence of that regulation, capitalism is gonna capitalist and eventually turn into corporatism, which is what we are dealing with now. But maybe economic issues isn't the real goal of MAGA, and we get a little taste of that when he starts talking about war.
We're at political war. I say that every day.
So what's the end point of a war?
The end point is we are in charge. We control the institutions. We control the political process. We actually have reclaimed this country, turned it around, put citizens first, and created a entrepreneurial capitalism paradise for average people in this country to happen to be citizens. And we're not going to back off 1 inch until we get it. And guess what? We're winning.
Don't you have a responsibility as someone who sees this and who's a student of history and has seen what has happened in history to calm things down rather than
Not to calm things down at all, to warn people. We must go to the ramparts. Because if you're just passive and docile and just flick the channel and watch the National Football League and go to Taylor Swift concerts, it's over. You need to rally people to say no.
How quickly Steve went from we're fighting for the working people to war. We need to take over all of the institutions from the local all the way to the top.
The strength of the populist nationalist MAGA movement in this country is we're anti-fragile. We're resilient.
I laughed out loud when Bannon said anti-fragile. Like, seriously, Steve, Trump is one of the most fragile little bitches we have ever encountered.
And we're never gonna kowtow to these people. We're never gonna get on our knees to these people. We're never gonna apologize. We're never gonna say we're sorry. All we care about is victory begets victory begets victory. And we know that we're ascendant and they're in decline.
And it also drives me crazy when people like Bannon talk about they. Who is they that you are fighting against? They never actually say who the enemy is.
We, as a populist nationalist movement, as a MAGA movement, we need to do like the redistricting fights. We need to get, this is why I was down in Texas, we need to get the House in a situation that is permanently defendable by the MAGA movement, right? So it's a blocking mechanism. And take that, like I said, you move a maximalist strategy with a sense of urgency, and you seize the institutions.
And while the Trump third term quote is the thing that is getting a lot of play from this interview, what Bannon just said in that clip is actually the crux of their entire strategy.
You have to seize the institutions, seize them and then purge them.
Fascism is a word we've been hearing quite a bit lately, but there's a reason for that. It's because of statements like this from Bannon. If it walks like fascism and talks like fascism, it's fascism. And although Vice President Vance likes to clutch his pearls and say that it's divisive rhetoric to call somebody a fascist, what Bannon just described is a MAGA fascist takeover of the government from local all the way up to the top. And he mentioned institutions. That does not only mean government structures. He also means all private, educational, and health institutions, among others.
There's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States.
He talks a big game, insisting that Trump will get a third term and that he needs a third term. But then he also says this.
The only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people. Okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies.
Contradictory to everything else that Bannon says in this interview when he talks about seizing institutions and war, he's also trying to create the illusion that the people are going to choose to put Trump back in the White House again through voting. They want to create the illusion of democracy, but it's a mirage because what they're actually doing is trying to suppress the vote in red states and redraw maps in red states. After watching this interview with Bannon, there's a little part of me that felt vindicated, because for all of these years, the opposition to MAGA has been called hyperbolic and crazy when we were speculating about all of the things that they actually wanted to do. And here we are. All these years later, Bannon is saying all of those quiet parts out loud. We are not the crazy ones. I mean, we may be crazy, but we're not wrong. We have seen what they have wanted to do this entire time. And there's a little sense of justice I got from that.
I don't agree with a lot of what you've said, but I have a much better understanding of what it is you're trying to do.
I opened this video with that statement from Zanny, and I wanted to bookend the video with that statement again, because it's a good reminder. Watching this interview with Bannon, although the Trump getting a third term is the most viral piece from it, that's a red herring of sorts. MAGA opposition candidates from local government all the way up to the White House need to watch this interview and start picking it apart. They need to strategize against this playbook and be very honest that this playbook has been in motion for over 50 years. It's going to take us a little time to mobilize out of it, but we have to be a united front. That's the only way to counter this. And I know this interview feels a little scary at times, but I actually take a lot of comfort from it because he's being so specific and so clear about what they want to do. And we can also look back to so many historical examples as a reminder that this is not new. We may have different technology now, but the motivations have always been the same. We can counter it because we have countered it before. This is a stressful mess, but here at Really American, we are relieved to be in that stressful mess with all of you. So make sure you subscribe to keep up with the latest. Share this video with someone in your life. Let's keep the conversation going. For Really American Media, I'm Corinne Straight. Thanks so much for watching. I will see y'all next time.